what would be the best way to attract top talent in Japan?
Top talent in Japan is all about branding and talent marketing.
So how did you end up in Japan? What's the story behind it? From a recruitment perspective, what are the biggest trends in Japan right now?
Well, the 4 pillars, I think, globally are...
Personal honor plays an important role.
That too.
What does that mean exactly? How do Japanese companies view job hopping?
Very disloyal and very unstable and very... sort of like, are you okay?
Planning to go and work in Japan, what advice would you give to that person?
Wow, we could be here for an extra hour on that topic.
Okay, so let me just cancel my next appointment. Hello, Sam. How are you feeling today?
Hey, doing great. Thank you for your time today. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time and for accepting the challenge. So I expect very interesting things for us to talk today and setting up here the context for the conversation. You've been living and working in Japan, in HR, in recruitment. So when I met you, I thought that, wow, this is the kind of person that must have very interesting stories to share with the community.
Oh, yes, I have many.
But broader than HR, probably. So that's why I invited you for us to have the chance to discuss and talk a little bit today. Okay. According to your profile, you said that you've been working at least as a senior international recruiter for more than 8 years. But how long has it been?
Yes, since 2016. So yeah, 8.5, 9 years, right? I've been working in terms of agency, bilingual recruitment for the first 4 years. And then I transferred that experience to go in-house as an internal talent acquisition specialist. And now I'm more of a talent partner level staff member.
Okay. So how did you end up in Japan? What's the story behind it?
Well, I decided that I wanted to come over to Japan to really understand the culture, the language more. I'm from New Zealand originally.
Okay.
And to give you a little bit of context, in all New Zealand high schools, you have to take a language at the beginning. Most people can take French or Maori or Japanese.
Maori is an option as well? Okay.
Yes, Maori. They still have Maori radio in New Zealand.
Okay, it's very far away from me.
Yeah, but Japanese is a very interesting language to have as an option because after World War II, New Zealand saw that Japan was quickly, becoming a very powerful trade partner, and so the government said, "Oh, we have to learn Japanese. Everyone, start learning Japanese." And so it's still an option for, I believe, just one term, but then you can take it, much longer if you like. And I decided to do that. But to become, fluent in language, it really helps to visit the country. So I saw in a brochure an opportunity to do a study abroad program for 1 year with the AFS scholarship, the American Field Service. And so I submitted my application and I was accepted. And I studied 1 year in Japan at Keio High School, I was very lucky. Keio was one of the top universities in Japan, and they also have a high school attached to that. And so that's how I started my time in Japan at high school. And then I went back and forth with university in Japan because you only get a 1 year visa usually.
Right.
And then after graduating, I came back teaching English for 4 years, but then I did a career shift and moved to Tokyo to do recruiting. And this was just by chance. I knew I wanted to get back to Tokyo. I was working in Nagasaki City as an ALT, assistant language teacher. And you may be in the same knowledge space as me, but you don't go to university for recruiting. You don't grow up thinking you want to be a recruiter. But a friend of mine said, "Oh, you should make a LinkedIn profile. Just start connecting with people." And then a bunch of recruiters reached out to me and they said, "Oh, you speak English, you speak Japanese. Do you want to become an international bilingual recruiter?" I was like, "What's that?" And so I did my research and decided that sounds like a good idea. And so I moved into that in Tokyo.
So it's a valuable skill, speaking Japanese and English for the Japanese market.
Yes, to become a bilingual international recruiter in Japan, Japanese is very helpful. You will get a lot more interviews faster, even if you're outside of Japan. Big international recruitment firms like Hayes, Robert Walters will consider your application even outside of Japan if you speak fluent English, native Japanese, and of course, if you have a third language, that's even better because if you speak German or if you speak Chinese, those are the or Korean as well. Those are the up and coming languages in terms of additional business.
Yeah. Which one do you speak? Do you speak a third language as well? No, not yet.
No. No. I can't tap into those other language, focused industries yet. But I have had experience with some Spanish and many American clients as well, which was a new experience for me because New Zealand English is, of course, American English, but the slang is different, and I had to learn that.
I've been in Japan as well in 2015 for 2 weeks. I've visited Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto. So I just went to the touristical things, went through the bullet train. But indeed, it's another world. It's so different. Everything looks so different. It's an amazing experience. You probably felt that when you start moving from New Zealand and going for the first time to Japan. So after all this time, do you speak fluent Japanese already?
I consider myself to be fluent in Japanese, but there are still levels of Japanese that are difficult for me to understand in terms of reading a newspaper. That's quite difficult, or maybe a different dialect or a different context. For example, if someone starts talking about chemicals, I'm lost.
It's too technical, maybe.
Correct. Yes.
From a recruitment perspective, what are the biggest trends in Japan right now?
Well, the 4 pillars, I think, globally are similar to Japan to a certain extent. And that would be the first big pillar of recruitment is consultancy, whether that could be B2B software, HR, or automation consultants in terms of Deloitte, EY, British consultancy, all of these, Wipro, HCL, all of these companies are heavily hiring. Accenture, they have 11,000 plus people in Japan. It's insane. And so these companies require Japanese people who speak very, very fluent English. And that's where an international recruiter shines. Deloitte, EY, big international companies that report in English. If a Japanese person is speaking to another Japanese person, it's very unlikely that they're going to do an English test with each other, Whereas a global international recruiter who's fluent or native in English can do, a little bit of Japanese talk like, konnichiwa, osen torimasu, how are you doing today? And then switch, so this opportunity is with a global client, so we need to speak in English from now on. Is that okay with you? And then we can say to the client, yes, I spoke to him in English, the whole time. I'm sure he'll have no trouble at all to be an excellent, project manager for your, team. So that's one of the first big pillars that are very profitable for an international recruiter. The second one, and I'll go through the next 3 sort of quickly, is IT. Obviously, Apple, Google, Amazon, you have to speak, English and Japanese over there. The third one would be healthcare, life science. It used to be all cancer and heart related, but after the coronavirus, it's vaccine heavy right now. And so you need a lot of RAs in these international life science companies, regulatory affairs managers, regulatory affairs specialists. Whenever an international drug comes into Japan, it needs to be approved by the Japanese government. And it very rarely is the first time. You have to go back and forth and back and forth. And every time you go back and forth, you have to go in Japanese and then you have to go back and report in English, right?
Wow.
So again, yeah, so those Japanese people need to have very high level of English to understand the scientific side of the drug. And then the last one would be banking and auditing, right? A lot
Mhm.
of auditors I met in the past were not Japanese. They needed to have US GAAP or JP GAAP, General Accounting Practitioner, certificates, and a Japanese person who is young probably doesn't have a US GAAP certificate. So that's where some non-Japanese people can get some roles in these banking companies sometimes. But also for a recruiter, it's a lot easier to tap into that community. So those are the 4 pillars that are very hot in
Okay.
Japan.
And you, as a recruiter, are you specializing in any of these 4? You work generalistic roles?
I've worked in all 4 of them in my career total experience, but I only did life science for about a very short time. I
Okay.
am very heavy on the client-facing IT side.
That's the one that you prefer as well? Your comfort zone would be IT?
Yes, anything IT related. I'm very knowledgeable in terms of how it works on the client-facing and the back-end side.
How does Japan job market differ from other countries? Although you who only have working experience in Japan, are you able to differentiate the reality that you know on a daily basis to international recruitment?
Well, yes. Back in 2020, I was assigned as the global talent acquisition specialist. So I did Japan, I did South Korea, Singapore, India, the Netherlands, and
Okay.
Canada and America. So
Okay, that's very diverse indeed.
yeah, it was very busy. So I got to learn about European Union rules, but also the Indian lakhs and things like that. But yes, in general, from my experience and knowledge, Japan moves a lot slower.
Why?
In America and other parts of the world, you generally can get away with a 2 weeks notice with your manager before you join a new company.
Okay.
Here in Japan, it's 1 month. And if you're a director or a manager, it's sometimes 2 months. Um, there are some, more complicated things where you are on a Deloitte project and you can't leave until that project is finished. Okay, well, that's 3 months,
Okay.
So that makes hiring very slow here. So slow that I call it the seasonal hiring. When it shines, when it snows, it's different levels of hiring. For example, in August we have the Obon, the summer break sort of in Japan, and no one's going to talk to you then. And in December, you've got Shogatsu, the end of year break, and no one's going to talk to you then. So
Okay.
it's very seasonal.
Although, Sam, it sounds like very similar to the reality that I have in Europe, right?
Oh
Because
yes.
because it's maybe the big difference would be with the US, because with Europe it depends your seniority in the company or the length of service will matter to the notice period. So the longer you be in the company, the more you need to give to your employer, and it could be 1 month, could be 2, depending on that. And I've worked in recruitment here in Europe, so it's also the same thing. So during summer break, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Clients do not respond. Clients postpone decisions after the summer break. So you need to plan your life as well, because during that period nothing happens. And I'm speaking to you from a country that has lots of sun, so people really enjoy the summer break in order not to do anything. And the same thing happens in the end of the year, because it's Christmas and decisions start to be postponed. When you enter December, decisions start to be postponed to the next year, because there's no
Mm,
budget anymore. People are going to have vacation. It's not strategic for the year, etc. Let's
mm,
rethink
mm,
that
mm.
on the next year. So it's exactly the same thing. Exactly the
Yeah,
same thing.
I think you're right in your comment earlier, though, with America. Um, it works a little differently because they have spring break, which is very important and big, and then
Mhm.
Christmas. But yeah, generally, depending on the role, I think most roles in America can do 2 weeks notice, but it is case by case.
I think it's the employment law that is different, right? It's like we see in the movies. It's
Yeah.
you're fired, and you go in that day,
Yeah,
right?
it's like work at will, you're gone. It's very, very different
Pick
over
your
there.
stuff and get the hell out of here, right?
Yeah, very,
So,
very different.
okay.
But I think, yeah, one of the other things in Japan that is quite different is your term of employment. So, of course, there's haken part-time, there's contract keyakushain, and then there's perm seishain. And a permanent employee in Japan is very, very difficult to be told to leave a company. And so that's why some very big, we call them domestic, we call it a domestic Japanese company where it's like it has no international office, or if it does have an international office, it's very small. So these domestic companies, they generally cannot or will not do layoffs. A good example would be Nintendo. Nintendo Japan has not done layoffs. They've kept their salaries quite low. They only recently increased them last year, I believe. And so, people will generally just not leave their jobs, change their jobs at all if they're in that domestic market. And so, as a recruiter, it makes our job very, very difficult to try and poach and bring candidates from good, long-term, experienced backgrounds that have not changed jobs before. Um, and when they do change jobs, the uh, incentive is usually these big international companies have a higher budget, and so they're going to get paid more. But it's unstable, of course, because international companies, like to do reform a lot more than Japanese companies.
Correct me if I'm wrong or if I have a wrong idea, but I've created that idea that personal honor, plays an important role.
That too.
What does that mean exactly? Are you able to explain?
Yes, pride, honor, but I think a word we're not using there is loyalty. Japanese are very loyal to family and very loyal to their employer, but also very loyal to their client. And so, even if the company is terrible and the employer is terrible, saving face is everything, because you've probably heard the term salaryman before, a Japanese salaryman. Have you heard of that term?
No. Can you clarify?
A salaryman is an English pronoun that was sort of Japanese, sort of American made up word, and it was just a type of Japanese man, a salaryman. But generally, a salaryman is just someone who brings in money or is usually in a sales position, usually, or client facing sales position. And so a salaryman reputation and loyalty is everything, because if they leave, if they have a client, the client's about to, get back to them with a response, uh, whether the deal goes through or not, doesn't matter. Deals usually go through December, November, right? But this account manager, as an example, in October, he gets an offer for $100,000, as an example.
Mhm.
And he's currently getting, $70,000 at his domestic Japanese company, as an example.
So it could be a bump. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, wow, more money, but he's not going to leave until January, because this client, the client is going to feel, betrayed, that their communication, the deal they've been working on for, how many months. And then even if they say no, it's more important for them to keep the loyalty of the client, so they can bring over that client in the future, right? Yeah. So I think loyalty, to the client and also to the employer, is a very important part that plays on Japanese people job change reason.
Do you think in other countries that does not exist, that may be called like being professional, or the Japanese are even more? They put them that relationship above the potential gains they could have immediately by just swapping a job.
It is important. I mean, some companies, they can be very well organized in the West, and they might have, if you leave, it's fine. We're going to, bring this person over to take over that,
Yeah.
position. It's okay. Don't worry. But some Japanese companies are or are not. And if one person leaves, the deal, the history, the relationship, the information, it's just vanished.
That also means that the company that is hiring that person, they are willing also, they respect waiting 3 months for that professional because they know that he's closing the deal.
Good question. Yeah, I have heard stories. I do have my own stories of people and candidates that I've spoken to. I had a very senior director sales, background candidate, and he moved into an international company to be country manager, and I believe it took like 9 months or something.
9 months? Wow. Must be good.
They also needed to prepare his role over there to become country manager, and then he also needed to prepare, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So, but that was a big, a very big title, very sensitive title. Yeah.
A very specific situation then. Okay.
Exactly.
So how do Japanese companies view job hopping compared with international companies?
Very disloyal and very unstable and very, sort of like, are you okay? Situation.
What's the problem with you?
Yeah. A little nod to that. Because, well, so that's one side. Obviously, that's one domestic side to the situation. Make it is unstable. The other side is, you can make more money, as most people know in the West and many other parts of the world. If you make a good job change, you have the chance to increase your base salary, right? And many big international companies, have higher budgets. But of course, they will only accept, a candidate. Not always, but usually, I would say they would like to accept, candidates who speak good English, right, to work in that international environment. So, I think Japanese who have worked abroad and understand that job changing is more common, and speak English, can change more so than other Japanese people. But yeah, it depends on the person and the background, and also the career. At the end of the day, I find that back end, more technical, careers change less, and client facing sales roles where your target is everything, just have to change more often to, you know, uh, move on because of target reasons and things like that.
So regardless of the sector or the area, what would be the best way to attract top talent in Japan?
Top talent in Japan is all about branding and talent marketing. You need to have a brand campaign involved, whether it be on Japanese social media, LinkedIn social media, or even billboards or something like that.
Billboards?
Definitely. Train not maybe not maybe some billboards, but I think that the within the subways of the trains,
Uh-huh.
above the door, you have a curved space, and this
Yes.
curved space, you can slide in mini billboards, posters.
For jobs?
Yeah, for jobs. Yeah.
Wow, never seen that. Normally it's like the map of the subway.
No. In the middle, you have the map of the subway, and then on the sides, you have the seats.
Right.
Above the seats, there'll be like, I don't know, a ski season coming up or something.
Okay.
But I mean, I never saw this in New Zealand, but
Me neither.
there is just so much advertising on job advertising
Wow.
and job platforms, and company, hiring seasons, because South Korea and Japan are now, the lowest birth rate in the world. I think it was last year in Japan. Hear this number. Last year in Japan, I'll have to Google it right now. I can't find the exact number, but it was around 720,000 babies were born last year in Japan. That means in 2046, they're only going to have access to 720,000, candidates for new grad hiring. That's not enough because there's 119 million people right now. So Japan is in a downhill spiral of just not having enough people.
Enough people to the jobs or to pay social security or pensions?
Well, that's both. Well, that's both. Yeah.
Both. So you were thinking about both. Okay.
Yeah. And so the Japanese government's trying to combat it. When I last checked in 2021, we were at 1.3 million non-Japanese in Japan. Now, earlier this year, we're at 3 million non-Japanese in Japan. Still a very, small number compared to the percentage of the country,
Yeah.
but that tripled. And so, what's happening now is a lot of blue-collar jobs, a lot of builders, a lot of low-paid jobs are being replaced by foreigners now.
From specific countries?
My garbage man is from Turkey. The builders down the road are from Thailand.
Because I'm just imagining that any country in the world will have a cultural and language barrier trying to work in Japan because there are no other countries that speak Japanese, right?
It's the only ethnicity. It's the only language. It's the only religion. It's the only cuisine.
Wow. So you need to be courageous enough to change your life to live and work in Japan.
Yeah. It is a first world country, though. It is very stable. Even on minimum wage, you can still have a very high quality of life. Very high quality of life. When the limited income becomes a barrier is to getting out of Japan. If I want to get out and go to New Zealand, flights are expensive, quite expensive.
You mean by traveling, just traveling vacations outside?
Well, yeah, if you're from Europe, if you're from America, if you're from Australia, these are very far locations. The only close location is Korea and China, right? And then the other issue, of course, would be taking the bullet train around Japan or staying at hotels in Japan. If you want to do local traveling, that's now very expensive because like most countries all over the world, the hotels are playing catch up on losing money during COVID. So the prices of hotels are triple now. And also tourism is very high in Japan. So the Japanese are competing for the tourism, hotel space, which means local travel is, I just don't do it anymore. But food and rent is still very, very affordable here. I think, just some tourist locations like Western food, like pasta and, other Western cuisines are very expensive. But if I want to go and get, not sushi is quite expensive anywhere in the world. And in Japan, it's also, I wouldn't say super expensive, but it's more expensive than your standard food. And the standard thing, like if I go to the office, I'm going to go and get some saba teishoku. So saba is fried mackerel fish, just pan fried, with rice, miso soup, and salad. And that will cost me 900 yen, which is, I don't know, 6-7 euro, something like that.
Okay.
So it's very affordable lunch. Yeah.
We may be overstepping a little bit HR conversations.
Yeah, let's go back to other things. But in general, it is affordable to live here.
Why speaking about boring HR stuff when we are hitting the interesting stuff about Japan, right, Sam? Because I wanted to ask you, since you are there, and getting back a few steps on what we were talking before, what are the reasons, in your opinion, or the cultural reasons why Japan is having such a low birth rate?
I think, wow, that's a great question. I think there are not enough practices in place to support new families, and new families are already busy enough
with what
work. It's a very heavy work culture that in the past you would live in what was called a nuclear family, where you would have the house, and then the house would be big enough to also have maybe the grandmother. When the mother is at work, the father is at work, the grandmother can pick up the kids or something like that. And
support.
so that's one problem, because what's happening is a lot of the rural cities don't have the high-paying jobs anymore. The high-paying jobs are all going to Tokyo. And that's like everywhere in the world. I think everyone in the world is having the same problem. All of these big cities are just getting bigger. And we see that year after year, the population of all of the major cities in the world are getting bigger. And so everyone gets married and they move to Tokyo and they want to start a family. Oh, there's no way we can support the kid or anything like that. So it's too difficult. We'll just have one kid. And there are practices in place like family support care and things like that that you can use, but you got to pay for that. And the family says to themselves, "Oh, I don't want to pay for that. Okay, I'm just going to have one kid." So that's the first problem. The second problem is, yes, housing is affordable in general speaking, I would say, compared to other places of the world here. But the way it's becoming affordable is all of the big houses in Tokyo are getting ripped down. I see it actually every single year. All these big houses from the 90s and the 80s, because the 90s and the 80s is when Japan was very rich. And they could have big houses with 5 or 6 rooms or 7 rooms in them,
Wow.
These houses are all getting ripped down because those people, 9010, 2025, they're 70 years old now, probably. And so, or 65 years old maybe, and they're going into retirement care. And so then the house gets sold off, the person rips it down, and they put 2 houses where one house was.
Smaller.
And so that house doesn't have room for 4 people. It only has room for 3 people. And so just the limit of space, you could say to yourself, well, okay, I'll just let 2 kids, stay in one room sort of thing. But, maybe the family doesn't want to do that. So they only have 1 kid. So that's why the birth rate in Japan, it's like 0.8 or something. Mm-hmm. So, people are having 1 kid and it's not enough.
Long term is not sustainable.
Long term, a few articles have been coming out about this in the Asahi Times, actually. There is a huge investment in trying to automate the low-paid jobs, such as agricultural, factory line works, and then the biggest growing trend, I think globally, but especially in Japan, is elderly care. So elderly care, you need to have people on 24/7, and so there are companies starting to create, with Tesla, these robots that can help the elderly up, go to the toilet, roll them over, and then instead of having 10 or 5 people on a elderly care center, you only need to have 1 nurse and 10 robots or something. Is a huge investment which is happening right now.
Maybe they can also help the families in their...
Exactly. Another quick one is hospitality. The hospitality industry just can't find enough people. They've been trying ever since COVID. They lost so many people. All of these hotels and Japanese ryokan, they're having a huge problem finding people. And so there's a number of new hotels that just opened up recently, and they're called smart hotels, where there's only 1 staff member and everything else is a robot.
Are those like we also see in TV here in my side of the world, where there are some not coffins? What's the right word?
You're talking about a capsule hotel.
Yeah, capsule hotel. Yes.
Yeah, they've been around forever. Yeah,
especially in train stations or something, right?
No. Hotels. Sorry, not hotels. Airports. Every single airport. If you have to catch a flight, but you have to wait, 12 hours, just go down to the capsule hotel in the airport.
Getting back here to recruitment side of the conversation. So, what are some of the common misconceptions about working in Japan? Do you have some that you would like to share?
Common misconceptions. Well, I've been here for so long; they seem normal to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a hard time thinking about it because I've been here so long. You might need to edit this out, my thinking part.
Yeah, I may need to give you some misconceptions for you to tell me if that's correct or not.
Can you?
Yeah. So not sure if it's a global misconception or not, but I have the idea that because Japanese society is that rigid when it comes to honor and loyalty, etc., then the work relationship would also be very rigid, formal. Uh, is this
Ah,
real?
yes. So if we're talking about misconceptions in Japan on employee to employer relationships or colleague relationships, it depends on the industry. Very
Hmm.
much depends on the industry. But there is a sense of high respect to your colleagues, very high respect. And that I think depends on the industry. If it's a suit and tie industry, or if it's um, a heavy client facing um,
Position.
enterprise level industry.
Okay.
That level of respect is very rigid. I've found and seen. Um, Even in more relaxed industries such as film and TV, I think it is still rigid, but there is a lot more um, smiles and jokes that might be shared in some of these more casual industries. But there is a hierarchy still in Japanese, senpai kohai hierarchy, which is just embedded in the language itself and the culture that you can't really escape.
What does it mean? Senpai.
Senpai is your senior, and kohai is your junior.
Okay.
Juniors must respect the seniors.
Okay. Can you give us an example or a daily example on how does that is reflected on the daily relationship?
The senpai is responsible for the senior is responsible for teaching and handing over and being a role model
Okay.
for the colleagues that are more junior, and then
Okay.
the juniors have to bow, respect, and thank or apologize for whatever the situation is, and show great respect. So that is perhaps you know um,
So that's automatic, Sam. If I
yeah,
get into a new company and I'm a junior and someone tells me, you see that the senpai is there, I automatically am expected to bow, etc.
yes. If
Okay.
you're in a very strict um,
Environment.
well established company. But
Mhm.
yes, TV and show and media, it's a little more casual. And then there is the so here's the big misconception. I think while you have this rigid hierarchy, senpai kohai society, or habit culture, in Japan, the one time, the one time it can be relaxed is during nomikai, which is drinking out.
Karaoke night.
Yeah, well, karaoke night, or just go to the bar. Go to like a
Mhm.
izakaya or nomikai or something. Izakaya is like a bar and food sort of, or like drinks and food. And so during then, yeah, you can take off your necktie and relax a little more, and there still is some respect that is shown, whereas the junior will usually pour a beer for the senior, but there's a lot more laughs and there's a lot more
Okay.
jokes being told.
I really need to ask you this, Sam. So imagine in a different country, if a junior pours a beer to a senior, it would look like he's kissing his ass, right? But if you do that in Japan, that's fine.
It's showing respect.
Showing respect. Okay.
Yes, so that is one big difference. The misconception of it, though, right? During a nomikai, yeah, it's a lot more relaxed. During a
Mhm.
drinking out night in English, it's a lot more relaxed.
What about that idea that may be wrong, but you tell me that everyone needs to arrive before the boss, everyone needs to wait for the boss to leave after the boss. Is that real?
Well, to some companies, yes, we call them kurogaisha, which means black companies.
Black companies?
Yeah, black.
Black by why is it black?
Well, you can't call it a red company because red would be the red light district. So black meaning bad, just bad,
Hmm?
White is good, black is bad, right?
Okay, so black company would be a bad company to work for.
Yes, I would not want to be in a kurogaisha black company. And
Mhm.
so there are still some black companies out there that have these sort of very strict um, uh, not just working hours, but other other things that, just go way beyond the normal HR principles, such as, you've done your 8-hour day. Okay, great. Now you have to do 2 hours of overtime.
Okay.
Yeah. So after COVID, things have, they were remote, or they were flex, or they were hybrid. Um, Many Japanese companies have gone back to the office. I would say I saw some stats recently. I went to a LinkedIn conference, um, and I think it's about 43% of Japanese companies have gone back to the office now. And then the other 60-ish percent or so are in a undecisive situation, whereas some are once a week in the office, some are once a month, some are twice a week, things like that. So
Hybrid, some kind of hybrid, right?
yeah, things are definitely getting better for the international companies in Japan. It's all about results first, flex time, get it done. So
Mhm.
that is a huge pull as well to work in an international company right now in Japan.
Okay.
But yes, there are still crazy stories of people working 15-hour days in Japan. There are still those crazy stories.
And that
Yeah.
would be seen as like a good thing. This guy is very loyal, lots of honor, or just a crazy person.
It depends if you're working there for the sake of working, or you're working there for the sake of closing a deal or closing a project. So a black company would a black company that has you working there for 8 hours, and then you have to do your overtime situation just because, I don't know, we need you, we need people sitting there. That would be a black company, in my opinion. But if you're Morgan Stanley, or Amazon or something like that, it's it's seen as very good for your career and very good for your company if you work there and finish these projects on a timely basis.
Considering that in the next years, Japan may be missing workforce,
Huge numbers, yes.
how does Japan view foreign talent?
Well, I think the Japanese, even the elderly that were not part of this generation, I see a lot of the social media YouTube videos about this. There's a huge question for people interviewing people on the street about this question, and the elderly agree and accept it. However, they do want these non-Japanese people coming to Japan to at least speak some Japanese. That's
Mhm.
important. Government's still very traditional, but they have relaxed the blue collar industry. Right, we just tripled the numbers of non-Japanese, early this year. So
Mhm.
it is mainly made up of mainland Chinese and Vietnamese. Um, a lot of those Vietnamese, I've been told, are working in farmland areas of Japan. And the Chinese are also working in hospitality, in many other industries throughout Japan. So that is slowly changing. But for the high skilled, high paid individuals, Japan still remains unattractive unless you, just the taxes, because Japan is trying to keep the whole society not super rich. There's not many super rich Japanese people in Japan compared to America, right? And so, uh, the high taxes. I think it's over 112,000 US dollars equivalent. Over that, your taxes just get very high, and it makes it unattractive for foreigners to come over if they're earning above that wage.
We are getting close to the end, Sam. But I wanted to ask you, if someone is listening and is got to this video because is somehow planning to go and work in Japan, what advice would you give to that person?
Wow, we could be here for an extra hour on that topic.
Okay, so let me just cancel my next appointment.
If you want to come to Japan, you're going to need to learn Japanese just to live here and enjoy the life. That's the first thing.
But learn before or learn after you're there?
Learn as soon as possible, because it's a very complex language. If
Mhm.
you are coming from a Western language, Spanish, German, English, French, I looked this up on ChatGPT recently. It will take you 2,500 man hours of study to become fluent in Japanese from a Western language. If you speak Korean or Chinese, it'll take you about 1,000 hours of study to become fluent in Japanese. We don't need you to be fluent to live here, right? Maybe 500 hours is all you need. But you do need to put aside the time to understand a few phrases and read a few words. And that will help you. And all the Japanese people here who are friendly and want to talk to you, they'll respect you. But your workspace will also respect you, and your career opportunity will also, increase. That's the first thing. The second thing is really think about it if you really want to live here or not. Because once you come here, the experience that you gain here is very good if you want to keep living here. But learning Japanese and living in Japan and creating these networks and connections are not very valuable if you ever decide to go back to America or Europe.
Okay.
So I would say if you want to experience Japan and you say to yourself, I want to live there so I have more time, that makes sense. But if you also have a career that you need to build, back in Europe or back in America, try not to get lost in Japan for too long. Maybe just, 1 year as an English teacher is all you need, and then you can go back home.
Okay.
But if you really want to be here long term, you need to start studying Japanese, and you need to start gaining different skills, especially IT. There are a lot of foreigners in Japan who are, in the IT industry, because still Japan's IT market is very limited in terms of just their build they have. And so a lot of Indians and other non-Japanese people get hired as software engineers very easily. I would say easily might not be the right word, but they get hired. And so that is a very good career opportunity. Now, if you've never done any IT development before, there are a number of boot camps in Japan. I'm going to quickly name one, Lehrwagen.
It's international, yes. I know the name.
Yeah, you know it? Yeah, it's very good, right? So the reason I want to bring Lehrwagen up is because they give you, the boot camp in Japan where you, learn the skills, and then you do the course and you build your own app or your project at the same time.
Uh-huh.
And much like the other places of the world, here in Japan, Lehrwagen, when you finish that boot camp, software engineering course, they invite so many other, companies in Tokyo to come, view your project that you finished.
You may get an internship or something.
Yeah, so you should do it in Japan, right? Like, come to Japan, think, ask yourself the question, and I had the same question. Do I want to live here? I don't know. I'm not living there yet, so I don't know the answer to that. Come here, 6, 12 months, something like that. And then hopefully before 6 months or during that time, you can say to yourself, yes or no, I want to live here forever. And then if the answer is yes, then you go to maybe Lehrwagen, you do a boot camp, you double down, you go to a Japanese language, school like, what is it? Japan language is one of them down the road. And, some people are good at studying by themselves. Some people are not good at studying by themselves. And so some people need to pay or be immersed in a learning environment to get there. And once you get these language skills and these courses, these certificates, these other skills, you can become very valuable to an international company in Japan, especially if it's client-facing, like a project manager. That is a very high skill to have if you're a fluent English speaker, because a lot of development, I would say for Europe as well, a lot of software business level, enterprise level business development is still being done offshore in India. And so is that the same for you?
I would say yes.
Same,
it's the same
yeah.
story in many places in the world, yes.
Yeah, same. And so Project managers, even if they have conversational English, it's not enough because India has a different dialect. They have,
Mhm.
obviously native English. So
Mhm.
native English speakers from America, can interact with India, very easily. And if they have that Japanese ability, then they can report right as well. So there is a lot of opportunity that I don't have time to go into, but there is a lot more than just English teaching in Japan, is what I'm trying to say.
Sam, thank you for everything that you shared. The personal experience from a foreigner living in Japan, working in Japan. So it truly helped me, and I hope that everyone that listens to this video to understand better the reality that you face on a daily basis, and also what someone could be facing in the next years working in Japan or doing business with Japanese people and Japanese companies. Thank you for that.
Thank you for your time. And I just like to finish in saying Japan is and will continue to be an incredible country for life and career. But like many places in the world, you have to work for it. You have to apply and, spend your weekends studying sometimes. It's not an easy place to live, but it can be very rewarding. And thank you so much for your time. I hope, anyone who hears this feels free to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's Sam Hall on LinkedIn. Thank you again, everyone.
The link is in the video description for your profile. Thanks, Sam.
Take care now.